Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Todd Gilchrist. I'm the Vice President of University Services and Finance here at the U of A. I'm also honored to be the SETS sponsor and chair of the Service Excellence Steering Committee. And so on behalf of the team, welcome everybody to today's session, including those that are in the Zoom room, as we call it, from faculties and units across campus as well. We are broadcasting on YouTube today as well. So thank you to those of you on the live stream that are joining in. I'd like to first begin today with our treaty acknowledgement. The University of Alberta acknowledges that we are located on Treaty 6 territory and respects the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our vibrant community. Our session today is going to focus on the SET initiative in context of our finance stream of work, but I want to talk first of all that collectively we know in the work that we're doing under SET is to be more efficient and responsive to the changing needs of our institution, while at the same time better designing our administrative structures so that we can continue to support our core mission of teaching and research, which is really why we're all here. While the new operating model will ensure that we can operate effectively and efficiently within our new budget reality, a very important goal for us is to create, in addition to those efficiencies, is to create a vibrant and healthy working environment that provides staff with meaningful work, engaging experiences, and an organization where people feel valued and that you can bring your full self to work and really achieve your full career aspirations. I want to recognize and acknowledge that we're all experiencing different and oftentimes difficult emotions during this time. The change that we have going on within the U of A, compounded by the global pandemic. I want to recognize that these certainly are trying times, but at the same time, I want to reassure you that your feelings matter, and that we do truly see ourselves all in this together and wanting to work together in support of our university community. We have many resources to support us through this change, and I would refer you to the faculty and staff section of the University of Alberta for information on how to access resources. And please do reach out to any of us if you're having difficulty and need to access some of that help and some of that assistance. The changes being made by implementing the new model are significant, and they do impact each of us. All of you make valuable contributions to the success of the university, and we want to create structures in which you can continue that great work. Some of you might have questions about what this restructuring means for your own positions. What does it mean to move into the center, and what your career growth opportunities will be. And we'll talk about that more throughout our time together today. Throughout the process of implementing our model, we commit to continuing to share timely, transparent, and truthful information about the plan and the steps that we're taking moving forward. Not all of the answers are known yet. I know that that's frustrating to some people. There's reasons for that. Many of the steps are still being thought through. The project methodology that we are using is one that is iterative in nature, as opposed to a big bang upfront design, build, and then flip the switch to go to implementation. And so we learn, build, and implement as we go in phases. And so not all that detail is known yet, but we will share what we can with you today, and we'll answer as many questions as we can as we go. Also important to mention in that vein that this is the first of what will be ongoing regular Ask SET Anything finance editions, and information will also be shared through the UAT website as it becomes available, as well as the new finance stream page that you'll hear more about today. I'm going to be acting as your moderator for today's session to help answer your questions relating to the finance stream. We have brought together a panel of expertise. And before we get started with our actual session, I'd like to introduce everybody. We will start with Dr. Brenda Hemmelgarn. Brenda is our Dean of Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry and is the Dean co-sponsor of our finance work stream. We have with us today Martin Coutts. Martin is the Associate Vice President, Finance, Procurement, and Planning, and Financial Services Administrative co-sponsor of the finance work stream. I don't know that we could fit the word finance in that anymore if we tried, Martin. We have Rob Monroe with us today, Executive Lead of the Service Excellence Transformation Initiative. Brian Stewart, Program Director, Administrative Transformation, Service Excellence Transformation Project Team. We have Toby Smith, Project Manager, Finance Functional Review Stream in the Service Excellence Transformation Project Team. Stacy Brennan, our HR specialist within the SET team. Cheryl Earle, Shared Services Initiative Lead, Service Excellence Transformation. Michael, I apologize, I've already lost the pronunciation even though you've just given it to me. Michael Walaschuk, Director of Finance and Administration in the Office of the Vice President of Research and Innovation. We have Tim Abram, Business Analyst, Service Excellence Transformation, and last but not least, Sarah Horseman, Finance Analyst, Service Excellence Transformation. So as you can see, we have brought together quite the panel today to answer your questions. I'd ask for the first slide to be put up, please, Grant. Thank you. So as mentioned, we're focused today on our finance services specifically, and Martin and Brenda will get into that more in just a moment. But we'll be talking about how we'll be realigning finance services to fit in the overall operating model. This slide here really speaks to that overall operating model and how finance fits into that model. Martin will cover off in more detail in just a moment. The slides presented today will be posted to the SET website, so you don't have to worry about taking too many notes. And with that, I will turn it over to Brenda and Martin for opening comments. And Martin, I believe you're going to take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Todd, and good afternoon, everyone. So the finance stream is really just getting underway. The discovery phase, which engaged faculties and units across the university, wrapped up just last week, I think on Wednesday. And a big thank you to all of you who participated in completing the discovery workbooks. I know there were, just tons of competing priorities, and we certainly appreciate you getting the workbook submissions in on time. And now that the discovery phase is complete, the team is analyzing the information gathered, and that'll be used to help prioritize which processes will be redesigned first. The discovery work data will also help us understand what work is being done by whom, so we can ensure that proper supports are in place for the transition to the new operating model. Looking at this slide, as you can see in the new model, and FPP, by the way, stands for Finance, Procurement, and Planning. And you can see in the new model that there are 5 centers of expertise, as well as service partners and the transaction processing hub. The finance partner structure will be tied to the college model that's being put in place on the academic side of the house. And the service partners will be in place to support work taking place in the faculties, while also interacting with the centers of expertise and the transaction processing hub. And at this time, we're still working on the number of finance partner and hub roles that will be created to support the new model. And just a quick comment on the boxes you see on the slide for the processing hub. These are the areas that we know for sure at this point, the areas that are definite. There are other areas that are planned or under discussion, but we just wanted to present at this point what we know for certain. And what's most important to understand about the transition to a shared services model is that we have to redesign processes. Although this will take some time, we'll be using an iterative approach, just like the other set streams, like HR before us, for example, that enables us to be agile and to phase the implementation over time. And the next phase of the finance stream will be the functional review, which will start in early March. And it's in this phase where we will be engaging with staff currently doing the work. And the way we look at this, so you're the subject matter experts in the processes, and we want to ensure that you have the opportunity to be part of the working groups that will redesign the processes end to end. So our approach will include redesign workshops, piloting of new processes, learning, and then planning for transition once we're confident that the new processes will work. And this approach will not only define the new processes, but will also identify the training and the resources required to deliver them. So in a nutshell, we have, as we always seem to right now, we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we certainly appreciate your patience as we plan the next phases of the project. And now I would like to take the opportunity to ask Brenda Hemmelgarn to share her thoughts about the shared services model. So over to Brenda.
Thank you, Martin. These changes are important, and I think a great opportunity to better align the finance functions that we have across the university, and ultimately to really better serve our leaders, our faculty, and our staff. I've been at the U of A now for just over a year, and I've got experience from a number of different institutions across Canada, including McGill and McMaster, and actually for about 20 years at the University of Calgary. And I've seen in a variety of administrative and leadership roles. And I'm actually familiar with an administrative service delivery model similar to what's being proposed here, really with the focus on the shared service partner model. So as a faculty member and as a clinician and as an academic and most recently as a department chair, I found overall that there were many advantages to this centralized model. And this really relates to the focus on the specialist types of service rather than a more generalist type roles. And the thing that really excites me, and from my perspective, one of the main benefits of this shared service model is really the opportunity for career growth that it provides for staff as well. In this type of model, the staff are able to move from more generalist roles into roles with a more specialized focus and truly make it a career path. These more specialized roles not only provide opportunities for career progression, but they also provide valuable strategic support to leaders within the university community. And that's what I found in my role as department chair. I knew who my HR partner was and worked with them very closely. So I've had positive experience working with a shared services model with finance partners, as I mentioned in the past. These people in these roles have the skills and the abilities to address finance-related issues or seek out help if they don't have the answers to the questions right away. And the value of having someone who can either provide the answer or more efficiently find the information for you is really important. And that's what makes it such an efficient model. It may, however, feel like the faculties and the departments and other academic units will lose some control with this new model, but the economies of scale can be realized through consolidating these financial services, and with shared services, by standardizing processes, it will benefit all of us and make things, again, more efficient. While we won't be funding the finance partners from our budgets or have a direct supervisor reporting relationship for them, I'm confident that with our partnership with Martin's unit in particular, will ensure that our service expectations will be met. And again, based on my previous experience, there was a really good working relationship with the various business partners and others working in those various roles. So it is an exciting opportunity.
So we're going to get started with our question and answer part of our day here. Our first question out, we've asked Melanie Corrigan, team lead for finance in the faculty of AILS, to bring forward her question. So Melanie, over to you, please.
Hi, Todd, thanks. I'll just say most of the finance support staff should have an understanding of the services expected to be offered in Transaction Processing Hub. We've been told the areas will respond and provide support for items such as expense reimbursement, accounts receivable and payable, and job posting. And I know that Martin indicated that there was uncertainty in this, but can the SET team offer any insight at all as to the number of positions that will be available in each of these roles? When it comes to the roles in the hubs, there have been indications that transfers from the faculties to central units will occur, where administrative roles within the new model are the same or substantially similar to existing roles. And I'm just wondering if the SET team can explain how that decision-making process will look in terms of looking at a pool of candidates with equivalent attributes. Will some of those roles in the central hub be expressions of interest, or will they all be transfers? Can the SET team explain to the finance administration what exactly constitutes a service partner and what entails being classified as having expertise in a specific functional area?
Thank you, Melanie. Great questions. I'm going to try to cover those off, and if I miss something in there, then please prod me, or we'll pick it up in a following question. But thank you so much for answering. I think I'll start with, at this time, there are still some things that we are working on to understand. And so I mentioned earlier about how our project methodology is not big bang, not everything is planned up front. And as we work through the functional review process, the discovery process, the process redesign aspects of the program, that's where we start to really get down to answering some of this information. And depending on what discipline we're talking about, some of those go on into next summer. Finance is near the beginning, and so we will be able to answer some of those specific questions about how many and timing and so forth in more detail in the not too very distant future. But for now, I'll say that while we're still determining the timing of the postings and when people will be moving into positions, so that we can ensure everyone has the opportunities to apply for positions that they're qualified for, have interest in. That work is still ongoing. We're currently working on creating more specific tools to be able to communicate that. And one of those will be job families to work from in the future. This way we can standardize some of those roles. And each time that a position needs to be created, we can do that quicker and more efficient. And we'll actually be getting the synergies from across our new structure, as opposed to having to create different specific job descriptions for every role. We are in discussions with NASA and ASHWA about this, and hope to post the roles on the general career board shortly, and people will be able to get to see what those are in more detail. Our overriding principle is to meet all requirements, of course, within the collective agreement. That's a given. With this in mind, there are a number of ways that the positions will be filled if we talk about how we'll go through that. As a result of the new model, it's likely that most positions will see some degree of change or some impact, right? So even if that is just a change in who you report to. There will be a number of roles where there will be a change, but there are also roles where there will be obvious candidates, and those individuals we looked at for possible direct appointments and or expressions of interest. So we'll utilize a couple of different methods to get people into the different roles. But for instance, there are a number of senior financial officers that work directly for a faculty or portfolio currently. You'd asked a little bit about the service partner role and what that entails. Well, under this new model, using this as an example, the finance services are provided at the institutional level now, as opposed to at the faculty or portfolio level. And that's coordinated through the finance partner teams. So in this case, the senior financial officers would be great candidates for finance service partner roles, working back into the central team, reporting back into the central team with Martin and leadership team, but being embedded, serving their clients in colleges, faculties, units, portfolios, etc. And so again, that can be looked at through expression of interest type processes or possibly some direct appointment. There will also be a number of new roles with, I'll call it no equivalent roles. So in these cases, there will be a new job posting that will be filled using a completely competitive process. As much as possible, these roles will be filled by internal candidates. That is a commitment that we have as an institution. And we know that individuals are anxious to know the timing of these roles, and we'll be rolling out a website, hopefully as early as next week, that will provide details on the timing and type of roles that will be filled through this process. We will very likely rename it. Its working title right now is just the job board, and it is intended to let the community know what the roles are, a little bit of detail on them, roughly when do we think they'll be hired, how many of them will there be, what their job evaluation hay points are, and the like. I do want to reassure you all that in this new operating model, and Brenda alluded to this, there's greater potential in career growth and a clearer advancement path in the new model. And by moving to this central model, and you know, hopefully those of you that see your way into a role in central, there will be many development opportunities for our financial professionals, including opportunities to specialize in different areas. But if nothing else, imagine the opportunity that now lies before all of us with the institution as our area to grow and develop. And you know, I suspect that we will see people that will come out of a faculty in this transition, will spend some time locally, centrally. Maybe one will decide to take their career back into a faculty in a different capacity. It allows us to enable our talent to move across the institution, as opposed to our more traditional approach, which has been focused on faculties or units. So I think I'll stop there. Melanie, hopefully I've been able to touch on most of your questions. Thanks for getting us started today. I'd now maybe like to open it up for questions from others, and if you feel that we've missed anything from Melanie's questions, just prod us again, and we're happy to try to answer. And I'll just get my list up. So we're going to do this using the virtual hands, please. Stephanie Russell has figured that out. So Stephanie will go first. In case you're still caught in and amongst where the hand is and some of the updates, if you are updated in your Zoom, it will be under the reactions tab. If not, I understand that it is still in the participants list. Stephanie Russell, we'll start with you, please.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to ask questions. I think my question probably will be more specific to Dean Hemmelgarn. So in the clinical academic departments, we have a number of accounts in which physicians contribute to those accounts to help support resident education, research, administrative support, fellowships for subspecialties. These accounts can be quite active, and we've already been told that the intention is to remove finance from the department APO roles. So my question right now is, you know, with that stuff moving to the finance service providers, and we already have delays in terms of responses either through faculty or central finance, what steps are being taken to ensure that department members that are contributing to these accounts are getting communication and service in a timely manner that they're currently receiving from department APOs? And kind of adding on to that, what is the university doing to ensure that those funds that physicians contribute to are not being restricted by the government, since they are, you know, not necessarily public funds, but are funds that physicians contribute to for the specific operating of these departments?
Thank you, Stephanie. So a bit in that question as well. We'll try to separate that out, and Brenda, I'll certainly let you take a run at that. I'll maybe also invite Martin, and you two can figure out who would like to speak first. I think the one thing that I would just offer up, though, as a general overall is, and I alluded to it earlier, we will be going through a process where we truly understand what happens in the different faculties now. and we will be designing processes or redesigning those processes so that the services that are provided centrally meet and or exceed the expectations that are currently in place. Stephanie, it's trying to get to that level of detail right now that is sometimes a little bit harder to do because those processes haven't all worked their way through the functional review process and haven't been redesigned. So with that in mind though, Martin, Brenda, who would like to start?
I could actually start off. I know exactly what Stephanie's referring to. And Stephanie, I appreciate your questions. There are a lot of details in terms of what's happening with respect to finance in the various department levels. And as Todd indicated, our important next step is understanding what the processes are. And not just understanding the processes, but also, and this is something that Brian has always emphasized, is the importance of understanding what are the potential risks during a transition period and being able to identify those beforehand. So we'll be working very closely with all of the areas as we, first of all, understand the processes and then understand the potential risks during a transition period. To address the second part of your question, the finance, the activities will still be somewhat within the departments, but carried out by a partner, so the finance partner, service partner, for example. So providing some of those activities and skills, working closely with the departments. And again, based on my experience in Calgary, I, as a department chair, knew who my finance partner was and regularly interacted with them. It's the same individual. So we had a very good working relationship together. He understood what I needed from my department. And so we worked very well together. So those are the steps that will be taken, understanding the processes, the risk mitigation during that transition period, and then working closely with the service partners and providing the type and completing the work that needs to be done within the various departments and academic units.
Thank you, Brenda. Martin, anything you'd like to add?
I think I would just echo your comments, Todd and Brenda's, and really stress that the functional review is a key piece of the process. And Stephanie, like we recognize that there's a lot of unique processes, unique finance processes, and actually FOMD is a great example of a lot of unique activity, particularly in the clinical departments. So we're not going to jump to conclusions about how work will be structured. Like we need to understand the business, the finance processes, and that's why the functional review process is so important. Like we've gathered a lot of information. Now we need to go through that and understand that, and then work directly with the particular units. So I know that's kind of a generic answer, but it is reality. Like we're not going to jump to conclusions and do something without understanding exactly what we're doing.
Thanks, Brenda. Thanks, Martin.
Thank you.
Just a little bit along this line as well. I wonder if Rob or Brian, you'd like to talk just a little bit about the functional review process and how it is that we will gather some of this information that is required, that that Stephanie's really talking about, and how will we ensure that people like Stephanie are involved? Tim, Toby?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can certainly just speak in the sense of, and I kind of scrolled through some of the names. I know a lot of folks that are in the call today have been very active in that discovery phase. And that collection, as you know, if you participated in it, did deal with literally kind of all processes, including both restricted funds and operating funds, the kind of financial processes that are conducted in units and departments. And so with that information, our next step is that sort of doing the impact assessment, taking into account some of those risk factors, as well as some suitability for redesign or potential redesign. And then based on that, we prioritize. And then as was already mentioned, that's when we really dig into our functional reviews, where we dig in with the actual people that are closest to those processes and have those working groups to really understand and come up with solutions that'll work. Depending on what that looks like, what sort of avenue we're going down in terms of either with center of expertise or with the hub, or however that looks to be a best fit. Does that help? Is that what you're looking for?
That was a little bit of the addition I was looking for. Stephanie, is that useful?
Well, I did, as the department APO, I did participate in it and I did see it. What I'm not quite seeing is the connection. So, you know, department APOs, or at least we have been told that finance is being moved from our roles. So right now, with dealing with clinical departments, we have unusual schedules. So if the department chair or somebody else in our department can usually get a very quick turnaround based on their schedule to a financial question. What I'm concerned about is what's happening to ensure that same level of service is going to be done when we already have difficulty getting prompt responses, say from the faculty or the central finance areas. And that's kind of the reason why department APOs were already taking on some of these financial things, is to be able to be kind of boots on the ground, you know, answering the questions so that those higher level questions are going to those higher level authorities. Now, if these are all going to a service provider who theoretically is representing more than one department, how are we maintaining that same level of service department members are used to doing? And specifically, as it relates to funds that are earmarked and contributed to by physicians for certain services.
So, so just a couple of things. Sorry, Tim, to cut you off. Happy to explore this a little bit more. I think, you know, there's a specific context to FOMD. There's also some broader contexts here around service. And so I'll maybe ask Rob, you know, Rob, if you can start with a bit of a conversation around service level agreements and how we will be working to ensure that we do have people, processes, and systems that are in place to meet those needs, whether they are regular hours or off hours as may be needed, to Stephanie's point about unique hours. But just before I turn it over to you, I want to let people know I have received a message that in the YouTube stream that there seems to be a bit of a lag and that things are not coming across YouTube well. So I apologize for that. Claire and Grant, I will leave that info with you. If you hadn't heard that, there's not much I can do from my end. Rob, do you want to talk a little bit about SLAs, and then Margot will move to you, and others encourage you, please put your hand up. Now's the time to get your questions asked and answered.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. So I can talk about service levels and kind of a common a vision of what good service means to the university. So one of the premises within the whole SET program is just making sure that we do, as an overarching principle, is making sure that we have good service quality across the entire university. So it'll start with a shared vision so that everybody within the university should understand entirely what good service means. So that's just an overarching principle. Beyond that, within the program is we will be establishing service level agreements. So it's looking at the different processes, and where appropriate is we'll make sure that we have the right measurements in place. It's an agreement. So it's an understanding between the service provider and the service and the client, what the level of service is that is appropriate. And then making sure that those are measurable. So we'll measure that level of service. And if it's meeting the expectations, then great. We'll look to see if there's some continual improvement we can do. If it's not meeting the agreement, then of course they'll have to make sure that we're taking the appropriate action, is that to make sure that ultimately we are meeting your expectations. So that's the general principle within SET across all of the different streams.
I could just add to that, part of the review that Tim was talking about will be getting that information from you, Stephanie, and others in connection with the expectations and the current baseline or the current service levels, to try and understand what's needed and then incorporating that into any redesign we do. So we will be gathering that information as we're looking at the processes, as we're looking at how things work currently. So that's how then we can establish the requirement of where we need to go and what we need to build to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you all that contributed to that answer. That just the last bit that I will add. There is that saying that, you know, the past behavior is an indicator of future performance. I would argue that we have varying experiences across our institution with centralized services in the past. I would suggest that what we are going through and moving towards right now is unlike anything that we have seen in the past, and we are fully committed to ensuring that those services will meet the expectations of the organization, meet or exceed. Margot, let's go to you, please.
Thanks, Todd. My question is about the job board website that you referenced. I'm wondering if it's going to be internal postings only, or will it be like a public website like the careers one is? Right. And also, when will the job catalogs be available for campus as a whole? I understand they're still in the process of being finalized and changed with the college model, but if we could have an idea of when that might be available for our staff, that would be great.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Margot. I'll take a shot at the first one, and then I'll look to maybe Brian or Rob to talk about I think service catalogs is what you were referring to. So the job board, and admittedly, we have to come up with maybe a better or different name for it. It's a bit of the working name that it has taken on. And just so there's no confusion, when I refer to the job board, I'm not talking about the mechanism for posting the jobs. I'm talking about a mechanism to communicate to our community what the roles are, how many we think we're going to see, roughly what time are they going to be hired, over what months. And the intention is to start to get the communication out to all of you and all of our other colleagues across the university, so that people can start to see and understand what that future might look like, and learn a little bit more about the jobs. The job cards, the position descriptions, the new job cards, the job families, will be information attached on those, and so people will be able to see, what the jobs are, and what jobs they may choose to pursue. The other bit that was in that question is, will they be internal only? Will they be external? I meant to allude to earlier is that we're going to see a combination of things dependent on which role that we're filling. But I think the key takeaway is that the university is committed to our internal people. So from a job posting perspective, right, internal candidates will be given preference for sure. Brian or Tom, do you want to talk about is it the service catalogs, Margot, that you're talking about? Like what's being done where, what are the services?
Yeah, that is what I was referencing. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Brian or Rob, you want to give us an update on that?
I'll go, Rob. You can add if I leave anything out. So Margot, the four catalogs have been agreed to. Research admin, human resources, finance, and IT. So those catalogs are done, and we're working with them. 2 remain to be complete: student service and external engagement. As it stands, the student service is close to completion. I would expect that to be done in the next few weeks. External engagement is a little bit longer because there's a change in that unit, and we have to sort that out while we're doing this, and we don't want to put things in the wrong order. So we have given that one, even though we've done some work and we've got, we've gone a significant way in terms of outlining what that is. We still don't want to get it in the wrong order. We want to make sure that organization is ready to opine on the catalog and to make sure that it's fitting with their new structure. So from that perspective, there's just a few things that we need to get done. But I would say student services should be done within the next few weeks, and that will give us 5 of the catalogs. The other reason on the terms of the timing was also to make sure that what we call the back end office functions, HR, finance, IT, that we got those all done first, because they were the first ones we're moving on in terms of looking to transition into the new model. So from that perspective, the timing is not too difficult for us. The timing is in line with our own schedule. So while we'd like to have them all done, it's not too much of a problem currently where they are.
Thank you, Brian. And maybe just 2 bits that I'll add there is with the approval of the college model in December, I think Brian alluded to this, but some of those just need a little bit of tweaking to make sure that we align with that. And the other bit that I'll mention on the service catalogs is that they really are, actually I would suggest that catalog is a bit of a misnomer. They're 1 pages. So catalog implies that they're some big thick document. That's not the case. And they're evergreen. as we move forward and mature, so will those service catalogs. Thank you very much, Margot. Let's move on to Andrea, please.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. I work at AILS in finance, and I understand that maybe not all the faculties offer the same types of services that we all provide, but currently, I was just wondering for research projects, and currently we reconcile like the research projects and make sure all the supporting documentation is there. And because AILS has a lot of audits that the agencies or that we deal with our research services office about. And it seems to me like this function is kind of, maybe I'm wrong, but is going to be taken away from the finance perspective, or that it will fall back onto the research project or the research, sorry, the PIs, as it might in some faculties already. But I just want a clarification whether or not this would fall back on like the budget owners or the project holders and not be the responsibility of the service partners. It definitely, I don't think, is a possible function for the centralized service centers or transactional hubs, because you would need to have knowledge of the projects that you're dealing with. But
Great. Thank you, Andrea. Great question. I'm going to probably going to ask a combination of Martin and Michael to take a run at this question for you. And just while they're getting pinned to the screen here, I will just say that we might hear that that's a question that we're still figuring out as we work our way through the functional reviews. But let's see what some of the thoughts are. Martin, Michael, who would like to start?
I can start, and then I'll turn it over to Michael. So really good questions, Andrea, and I think the whole area of research finance administration is still under exploration and discussion, and some of the issues that you've raised are very valid issues, and we need to look at the elements of that work, and part of that will come through in functional review. But we need to look at the elements of that work, as you mentioned, like the reconciliation elements, whether there's transaction processing elements to that work, and make informed decisions. Like once we really understand the nature of that work, the specifics. So the short answer is we haven't committed to any direction at this point with research finance admin, but I'll turn it over to Michael, and he might provide some additional comments on this. It's early days yet, is my very short answer. So Michael.
Thanks, Martin. One of the things we're looking at is, and this is not just for finance, but HR. So if it's an HR transaction or a finance transaction, but it happens to be in research, is that a research admin function or a finance function? And I think some of these will just naturally land where it makes sense. But some of the things you're talking about, like if it's a reviewing transactions or providing supporting documentation, a lot of that will depend on what the transaction is. So the research center of expertise would still be responsible for coordinating the audits, but where we get the supporting documents from would depend on where that transaction is now being managed. If it's an HR transaction, probably that transaction hub. If it's a finance, where do those transactions now go? So part of it will be us in the research admin hub learning where all the other transactions are being managed. But one thing in particular that we want to look at in our research administration center of expertise or transaction hub is the project management work that you were mentioning, which is like reconciling projects and working with researchers so they know how much money they have left to spend, or if there's identifying transactions that don't belong there or making other adjustments. Like I think that is a very important part of the work we'd be doing. And where that work belongs is, as Martin mentioned, when we develop we do our own discovery of the research admin catalog. Where does that work get done? Where is it most effective, and where does it make sense for that work to be? So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Michael. And again, I'll just reiterate, and apologies if I'm repeating myself. I've had a number, not of these exact sessions today, but a number of discussions that are along a bit of a same path. So I forget who I've spoken to on what, but I will just reiterate that the intentional project plan that we are on with the SET program is one that is iterative. It's not a maybe more traditional project management philosophy where you design, build, and know everything up front and then flip the implementation switch with all that detail known. It is an iterative process. I'll say it's more agile, but I don't mean to use agile in the context of a textbook definition where we collaborate, we build, we implement, we collaborate, we build, we implement, and it moves along in iterative steps. And so we don't necessarily know all the answers. Today, I can tell you that the SET program is on schedule right where it should be. So I know for those of us, and I'm one of them, that would much prefer to have all the details up front. That is concerning and challenges me from time to time, but I do take comfort in knowing that we are on schedule for where we plan to be. We'll go to our next question here in just a moment. Just as we do that, again, I will encourage folks to put your hands up if you have a question. I will also, I understand from Claire that our YouTube streaming challenges are hopefully fixed now for those of you that are on the line. And we will now go to, and I apologies if I get your name wrong, Marij Ali.
Hi. Yes, you got it right. It's Marij. I know this has been a question that has been asked everywhere else, but as the job opportunities come through, I want to know how are you guys all planning to address the whole EDI issue? And if there is some way some people or some individuals are subverting that and going against the university policy, how do we sound the alarm button? And the second question I have is around the financial control systems. So as we're addressing all these processes, which is a little bit overdue, but when we're going through the processes and completing it, because our closeness to the process, we might not understand the control system failures. And down the road, how do you plan to independently review the financial control systems and make sure that university doesn't have a $12 million scandal like Grant McEwen did? So how do we ensure that that is something that we're stopping? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marij. I'm going to ask, I have some opinions on the EDI piece, but maybe Stacy, we'll turn it over to you to start with the EDI piece. We'll see where that conversation takes us. Others feel free to chime in or chat me if you'd like to add on, and then Martin, we'll probably start with you on the financial controls piece. Stacy?
Actually, I think it might be better if Brian or Rob tune in first, and then I can fill in the gaps from there, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, no problems. Rob, you want to try that one?
Sorry, just coming off of mute. Yeah, excellent question with the EDI. So as you know, the university does have a very robust principles that we're working towards with EDI, and the SET team is fully aware of those principles, and we will do everything that we can to make sure that we are meeting the principles. It can be difficult making sure that we do meet those principles because as we know, there is going to be job loss, and that does have to follow within union agreements, and so we do have to follow those processes. The other piece that I would mention around EDI is we have asked all of the members of the SET team to take the GBA Plus training that is provided by the federal government so that we have a better understanding ourselves as we're designing the processes to understand about unintentional bias and have a better understanding of the processes that we should be using as we design the new jobs, the new processes to make sure that we take into account all of the EDI type of issues.
Thanks, Rob. Brian, is there anything, or Stacy, anything that you would add there? I would just use another example, and I think some of this again will be a bit iterative as we go, but we did have a conversation at the steering committee the other day, and as we're talking about moving forward with some of the initial recruitment activity, about how all members of the recruitment panels we happen to be talking about faculty and college general manager roles, will be required to take the unconscious bias training, before we embark on those recruitments. So we are working to embody both the intent and the tools that the institution has at its disposal. Martin, let's start with you maybe in response to the financial controls item, and then we can open it up to others on that one that may have some input.
Yeah, happy to speak to that, and thanks for the question. So certainly, I mean, as we go through the whole functional review process and redesign finance business processes, we're going to make sure that we're always cognizant of the key financial controls and what ones might be changing or might have to be looked at. It's an area that we do a lot of work in currently. We have extensive documentation on our current financial controls. That we have financial control matrices for all of our key business processes across the institution. So as we move through the functional review, the redesign of processes, we're going to be updating each of those financial matrices for each of the key business processes and ensuring that key financial controls are still in place, or if there has been something that's changed, that we've adequately addressed that with compensating control or controls, plural. So it is an area that we're very conscious of. We don't want an incident like you mentioned that happened at MacEwan, and we have resources that will be devoted to looking at those specific controls. Like we actually have in my office a manager of financial controls and processes, and we also have the advantage of Tim Abram, who is front and center in the redesign process, who has been seconded from internal audit. So we have a lot of resources that will be very control conscious as we redesign our business processes. And Tim may want to chime in, but I think it's going to be an area that's front and center. Would that be fair, Tim?
Yeah, that's really fair, Martin. As you know, I always have that audit hat on the kind of on the side here. I can't quite get it out of my blood, so that's always a key consideration for me as well. Not just the financial controls, but even the IT controls as they butt up against. They're not exclusive in a lot of cases, you know. So yeah, definitely very high on our radar, Marge.
Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Marge, for your questions and all for your answers. We're going to move to Diane, and just as Diane's asking her question, I'll flag for folks, we've got about 6 minutes left in our time. So if there are any other hands that you'd like to put up, we might have time for one more after this. Diane, over to you.
Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity. We are setting up a large provincial grant-funded project. And I realized we badly needed some HR and finance assistance. And it's great for people who have those, all these people out here in place already, who can continue to do this work until the plan is implemented. But I have nobody in place. I can't hire anyone. So what can I do in the interim? What's the plan for this transition between no hiring HR finance and when I will finally have those services centrally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Diane. I'll maybe take a run at that one initially and then open it up for others if you feel I miss anything. Just more broadly speaking, even than your exact example, I'll talk about the fact that we're working in 2 phases here. So phase 1 of that is largely driven by our budget imperative that we need to meet in this first year by the end of March, right? So not surprise to anybody, we need to reduce our spend by $30 million by the end of March this year. Then And then phase 2 is actually the year we start to see the transition of services. And so there is a potential, despite as hard as we've all worked to avoid it and prepare for it, that we're going to have this period of bumpy road. And in that period of bumpy road, we need to make sure that we're not neglecting critical services, right? We can't let critical things sort of fall between the cracks. Although it might mean that during this period, we do have to make some conscious decisions that we won't be moving forward with some things, either deferring them or stopping them altogether if it makes sense to do so. So in that period of time, what we've been working on is, I'll call them temporary process systems or support. And I would suggest, Diane, if you're looking for some HR or finance supports in particular, I think I heard you speak to, then what we need to do is we need to get you connected with Wayne and with Martin, and let's see what we need to do to help you through your period of bumpy road. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. I'm just going to work to wrap us up here, and we'll try to wrap up on time. Really appreciate the honest and transparent nature in which the questions were asked, and the suggestions that has been made, and just everybody for coming out and listening. So if you didn't hear a question that you might have addressed, please submit your question in the Google form, which is linked to the YouTube page, so you'll be able to find some more information there. And we'll be posting answers to those submitted questions as part of the FAQ that are also posted more broadly on the UAT website. We're working to take those questions, that ongoing list of things that are important to people, and we're looking to keep it up to date so that it becomes a easy to find and easy to use tool. We are working to schedule Ask Set Anything events for the remaining streams, and we'll post those dates on the UAT website as they're scheduled. And live stream will be posted on the UAT website for later viewing for those of us who couldn't attend today. I'd like to thank everybody that worked behind the scenes as well to make today possible, and there's a lot, but in particular I would like to thank Pam and Helen, our ASL interpreters, for their support today, and Grant and Claire for all your work in the background to make the technology work and the video work and so forth. So thank you, and thank you to all of our panelists and the SET team, which I know works very diligently behind the scenes to advance this project on a day-to-day basis and to making today possible. With that, I will close us out. It looks like just about a minute early. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.